Hi and welcome to a weekly outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 22nd of January. So where are we then? On the euro dollar I will start first, but before I do that I'm just going to talk about the key economic data coming out this week. So we've got two central banks, the first one being the Bank of Japan that will be meeting and discussing potential outlook at Tuesday, early hours Tuesday morning. There's no specific time there at the moment, but generally by the time we get out of bed at 7 o'clock, the rates have stayed the same, but the comments may have changed. So we'll be watching that carefully for continuation for the rest of the day there. So that will give us a clue for the yen at least. Leading into Thursday, then we have to wait for the ECB. Now, I suspect Draghi will give one of his lukewarm presentations, i.e. that he'll suggest that growth is doing well, but somehow try and calm it down a little bit so people don't get too ahead of themselves and carry on buying the euro, which he doesn't really want to happen. He wants to keep it. I would have thought that with the way it's strengthened over the last few months, he will want it tempered at least, even if it's sitting at the right sort of levels now. But whatever the right levels may be for the ECB and their continued forecasting. But there's no doubt, in the previous minutes, it said about continuing the tapering, etc. And well, we may see a complete role reversal, and there was even a discussion of interest rate increases into next year. So we'll see. So that's where we are there. Now I've got more to talk about euro in a moment. That's just want to talk about the fundamentals first. Aside of that, we've got the two GDP data figures coming out this week. We've got the UK GDP. It's the primary GDP expected to come in at 0.4. That's on Friday. And then Friday afternoon, we've got the US GDP coming in at 3%. So expected to come in at 3%. So both of those can be quite decent movers. Now, aside of that, other data that's sort of significant. There's the French and flash manufacturing data that's kicking around there on Wednesday. It sometimes gives us a bit of volatility, and it particularly in the current situation may give us a bit more volatility on Wednesday morning, although as I say it's slightly tempered with the fact that we've got the meeting on the Thursday. You've got UK, we've got average earnings, well, more importantly the jobs report on Wednesday morning, so that's quite a big kicker generally, particularly the average earnings that will be looked for there. Now if there's any increase on that, we could see the pound sort of pushing up. We've seen inflation and seen retail sales going down, which killed it last Friday a little bit, but a sign of any stronger average earnings may be a trigger for a bit more upside on the pound. Side of that, just looking through, just checking everything here. That's the most important data out there. We do have inflation for Canada on Friday as well at 1:30, so maybe a bit more of a kicker around that as well for the Canadian dollar. We got some speakers through the week, and we'll probably get a lot of speakers through the week, because what's happening is, of course, it's Davos, the World Economic Forum going on in Davos all week. There's some key speakers. Well, there'll be key speakers all week. I think it could be one of those weeks where all of a sudden someone starts speaking about their own economy or other economies and other factors. In particularly at 2 p.m. on Friday, we got Carney and Bank of England Carney speaking at 2 p.m. due to participate in a panel discussion, the global economic outlook. So there's that. I think the Bank of Japan, governor talking at the same event. So we could have quite a bit out there this week in terms of fundamentals and ad hoc speakers coming through and comments. So that means we could see a bit of whipsawing now and again. We'll see. But let's look at the fundamentals themselves, and fundamentals, the technicals even. Actually, before I do that, I've got one other thing to look at. I should be looking at and showing you, and it really relates to the euro dollar as much as anything else. And I do like to see what the big boys are doing and the sentiment of the because I'm just bringing this into play. Hopefully it's all in view. This is the contracts by larger players, and you can see the week before last, actually, this is last. This is delayed. It's actually, the figures are generated on a Tuesday, so it's sort of, this is last Tuesday as the previous Tuesday. We'd reached a peak. Now, when I looked at that, I'm just going to scroll this and widen it up quite a bit there, and you can see that's one hell of a peak that we're sitting there in long positions on the euro. Now, it doesn't mean to say it's going to stop or anything of the sort, but what it does, and it's just tipped back a little bit this week. Now, it just dropped back a little bit, and I'm just wondering whether, based on this and the fact that we've had such a strong buy there, whether more started selling off during the week, as we saw the choppiness coming into play. And if we see it on a weekly basis, in fact, we ended up with a shooting star there on the weekly. Daily wise, we've ended up with quite a lot of chop here. Friday, particularly, another shooting star sitting in there. So it does suggest, and I've sort of started the week in a bit of a bearish sort of vein, but already the market's kicked up. It gapped up, filled the gap, and it's pushed back up into this sort of region of supply. Now, it's this which really, where we are here, the 123 area, sort of the whole number is significant. I come back to the weekly point here. This is, I think it's just above here, around about 123. Actually pushed up the previous week there. So last week it pushed into just over 123, but that 123, then of course 124. I started looking out further to where we could push up. Well, there's still the 200 above us, and the levels where I put this line, actually, which we ran into last week, is pretty much the monthly, some quite a lot of significant sort of bodies and tails and everything else that was sitting around that area. So we'll see how it holds, but we have had a good pitch. We've had 5 weeks up, positive weeks. It may be due a little retrace, we'll see, but of course this week with all the different speakers may put pay to any retracements, and it may just continue on. But for now, I'm erring to looking potentially at possibly, I mean there's a pucker divergence on the weeklies actually on this, looking at the MACD here. So that has been a divergence for a while, for a couple of weeks, and it's still sort of sitting there. So we'll see. But I am wondering whether we will just roll a little bit. But it may just give us opportunities, if we do, to buy into the longer side again. But let's see how we pan out this week. As I say, it's a bit of an awkward one with ECB and everything else going on. Running into the pound, well, the pound last week, again, not quite a shooting star. It's pushed in yet another week, the fifth week again of bullishness here, and again it's had a good run. There's the thing with the pound I have is that it's with the Brexit situation going on, and there's the comments that sort of coming backwards and forwards. Even the French Prime Minister suggested that we would he suggests a special deal for the British, so all of a sudden the tax is changing, maybe because we gave them a few billion or million offered, but we'll see. Anyway, the tax is changing a little bit maybe, and softening up a little bit, but we'll see when discussions get into the start in reality. Anyway, looking then at the dailies here, and well, shooting star again on Friday is pitched up again at the moment. Is it going to roll over? It has the potential. It's not too far away from its weekly pivot. It's just below us. It's got extended in terms of its regression channel here. It's at the top of the channel. Often it will draw it back at least halfway, but we'll see how that if that happens. There's no guarantees on that, but often when you see it coming out, it pulls back towards the mid-level, but it has got quite extended from where it is at the moment. But fundamentally, there's some reasoning behind it up until now, and it depends on whether it can push further. But it's, again, as I said, it seems a little bit stretched, but I think it's more risky on the short side at the moment, maybe with the pound, but we'll see as we run through this week. Now, dollar yen, well, dollar yen still in this relatively tight weekly pattern here. In this wedge, it did break down last week, but only really to the bottom of it, and it's bounced a fraction at the moment. it's a difficult one in terms it's still really quite pinched here in what we're seeing. There's daily wise, well, it's probably erring more and looking like there's the potential for the bearish side of that back down at least towards the lows. If it does, it will be diverging when it does get back to either the S2 or the 500, but it does look like it's got the potential to roll over perhaps some more. And coming back to the bigger picture, and well, it was sort of in a downward trend before all this started happening, so maybe it's got more strengthening to happen. Okay, Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar, the star of the show. It's been pushing and pushing. I did sort of look at some bigger time frames this last week during the looking at the prior lows and highs, etc., running through here, and well, it's looking like it's pushing up at the moment pretty close to its monthly 200. Now, again, it could just, I mean, it's a key level around that. If it starts pushing out there, we may see more of a push. It's just like any of these markets, when people start thinking they're a bit overbought, well, they can carry on being overbought for a while, and this may be no exception. The Aussie dollar's doing well from the commodity prices and oil, etc., all pushing up and helping. So at the moment, it's looking bullish. Proper cross here on the monthlies here. So it may well be some more upside potential there. But with all these markets, I do wonder. You see on Friday it didn't quite diverge, or it may have a small divergence on the dailies. But with all these markets, I do wonder. I mean, whether the dollar would just gain back at least part of this. We see some sort of retracement. And finally, the Canadian dollar. But to get into any of those retracements, we really need to see signals. That's the important thing here, clear signals in terms of what's actually going on. So Canadian dollar, looking at it from a monthly perspective, and there's sort of the clearish pattern of what it's done here. It had the big consolidation phase edging up fractionally over those few months, and it's been a bit iffy where it is now. But with the price of oil as it is, it's helped it significantly. I've got a trend line that it's previously broken a little bit. That was off those lows. It's sitting around that sort of trend line again. If I'd extended it, just consolidation here on the dailies, and it made it quite difficult with Wednesdays announcements, etc. It's made it quite consolidated. But in that consolidation, if it starts breaking the lows of that, well, it had a decent move down here. Maybe we'll see a similar sort of decent move down. And looking at the whole numbers, you're looking at 123 initially, then 122, maybe even on a one-to-one basis somewhere near that 121, and those prior lows certainly a potential. Okay, that's pretty much it from that. So as I said, be careful with ECB press conference coming up on Thursday. May see a bit of stalling with Davos. There could be speakers coming out at any point, so just trade carefully. Have a great one. Bye for now.